The tremendous bouquet. I got into a fight with my husband about something that I don't even remember now. Up until that day, I had never refused to make a meal, no matter how upset I had gotten. But this time, I thought, this keeps happening because I always brush it off. This time I won't cook for him and leave home for a couple of days. So I packed my bags and I was on my way out when I saw an opened Bible on the table. It was beckoning me to read from it before leaving, so I sat down to read it. It was opened to Romans 12, and my eyes fell to verse 20. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. I sat there for a while feeling dumbfounded. I couldn't bring myself to leave home, so ended up preparing dinner. The next day, still upset but wanting to pray, I sat down and closed my eyes. My heart was troubled and I couldn't focus on praying. Just then, I saw an image of a tremendous bouquet. Tucked into its side was a card that read, "Forgiveness." Since I was struggling to forgive, I wondered, is God encouraging me to forgive? Oh, God, I thought, but then forgot all about it while going about my busy day. That night, the doorbell rang. I went to the door and found a big bouquet of yellow roses delivered to my house. It was accompanied by a card. "Please forgive me, from your husband." It was the first bouquet I had ever received from him, but instead of feeling glad, I started grumbling. Why did he send such a big bouquet? It must have been so expensive. In that instant, I remembered the bouquet God had shown me in the morning, and I was reminded of a story from the Bible. There was a man who was forgiven by his creditor for a huge debt he owed, refused to forgive a man who owed him a tiny debt, and had him thrown into prison. The creditor became furious when he found out, and had the man thrown into prison until he paid his huge debt. Perhaps I was acting like this man, I thought. If I were to write down all of my sins, I would fill up a whole book. I received God's bouquet of forgiveness for all my sins through Christ. Yet, I struggled all day with forgiving my husband for a small mistake. God made me realize how stubborn I was being. Shortly after, my husband came in sheepishly and we reconciled. I told him about the bouquet of forgiveness. That night, we shared all of our wrongdoings against each other. We forgave each other and were forgiven. It was as if we were taking flowers from God's bouquet and endlessly giving them to each other. Then we wrote down any known and unknown sins we might have committed against others and sincerely asked for forgiveness. We also wrote down names of people who had purposely or accidentally hurt us and declared that we would forgive them. We may not be able to forgive them right away, but we planned on forgiving them and asked God to help us. My husband wrote a long letter to his father, with whom he was always clashing due to personality differences. He couldn't bring himself to send the letter, but afterward, they became visibly closer. It was an unforgettable day where we emptied ourselves of the hate and grumbling in our hearts and were filled with the bouquet of forgiveness. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Ephesians 4:32.